The crowd screamed as the gates of the arena opened. A massive beast stepped out, 10 feet tall, covered in dark armor, with 4 arms and burning red eyes. This was the Empress's champion, the strongest warrior in the Empire, undefeated. Feared by all, from her golden throne high above, the alien Empress watched with pride. Her skin was silver blue, her eyes glowing with ancient wisdom. Today's fight was meant to be a show, a warning to all who dared to challenge her rule. The announcer's voice echoed through the arena. Today, the champion will face a creature from a distant world, a weak and strange being, captured in the outer galaxies. Another gate creaked open slowly. A single human man walked out, dressed in a simple suit. His hands tied in front, he looked small next to the alien giant. Calm, unafraid, the crowd laughed. This human will die in seconds. They shouted. He is soft, slow, weak. The Empress leaned forward, curious. There was something strange about this human, something in his eyes. Not fear, not anger, but focus. The champion roared and charged. Dust exploded under his heavy feet. He swung his massive blade down toward the human, aiming to crush him in one strike. But the human moved. He stepped to the side with perfect timing. The blade slammed into the ground, cracking stone. The human didn't run. He didn't scream. He waited. The champion turned and attacked again, faster this time. But the human dodged again, then again. Each time, just by inches. His body was calm, relaxed, deadly. The crowd fell. Silent. This was no ordinary creature. Then, it happened. The champion raised all 4 arms and prepared to end it with one final crushing blow. But the human stepped forward, not back forward. In one smooth motion, he twisted his body and pulled something from his belt, a blade. Thin and sharp like glass, with lightning speed, he struck. The champion stopped. His body stood still for a moment, then split down the middle. A fountain of dark blood exploded into the air. The crowd gasped in horror. Their godlike warrior was falling. The earth shook as the body hit the ground. Up in the royal throne, the Empress stood in shock. Her champion was dead, defeated by a single human. But this wasn't just a fight, it was more than that. According to the ancient laws of her people, if a challenger defeated the champion in fair combat, the royal house would belong to him, by law. The Empress and her sacred maids were now his. The guards didn't move. The priests looked afraid. No one had expected this outcome. The human slowly walked across the arena. His blade disappeared back into his belt. He wasn't tired, not even breathing hard. He stopped in front of the royal platform and looked up at the Empress. His voice was calm, deep. "I don't want your throne," he said. "I want your secrets." The Empress's eyes narrowed. "What are you?" she whispered. The human smiled. "A warning," he replied. The crowd was still silent. No one knew what to say. No one dared to speak. In that moment, everything changed. This man, this human, had done the impossible. He had shattered the pride of an empire with one blade, and now, by their own law, he owned its heart. The Empress looked at her maids, loyal, trained, proud. Now they were his. And so was she. But what did he really want? Power? Revenge? Or something even more dangerous, knowledge? As the guards escorted him toward the palace, whispers filled the arena. Is he a god? Is he here to conquer? Will he destroy us all? The Empress stood tall, hiding her fear. She would obey the law for now, but she would watch him closely. This human was no ordinary creature. He was a weapon, a mystery, a threat. And she knew this was only the beginning. The palace halls were silent as the human walked through them. 2 alien guards followed him, unsure whether they were escorting a prisoner or a king. But the human's face stayed calm, like someone walking into his own home. Behind him, the Empress followed, her head held high. She was not angry, not afraid, only thoughtful. She had been claimed. Yes, but not broken. Not yet. The maids walked with her, 6 of them, dressed in red armor and silver veils. Each one trained in war, in dance, in politics. They were more than servants. They were weapons with hearts. One of them, Lyra, looked at the human from the corner of her eye. He was strange, quiet, but not weak. She had seen how fast he moved, how deadly he was. But there was something deeper. Inside him, something cold and hidden. She needed to know more. The royal law was older than memory. It said clearly, defeat the champion, and the empress and her sacred court become yours. It was made for gods, not for men, but here they were, walking beside a human, and the law could not be undone. They reached a private chamber deep inside the palace. It had been used by generals. In the past, a war room with stone walls and hidden doors. The empress expected chains, control, maybe violence. Instead, the human turned to her and said, "You may sit where you like." She narrowed her eyes. "You think kindness makes you different?" she asked. He didn't smile. "No," he replied. "Control is not always loud." The maid stood in a circle, waiting for command, but the human gave none. Instead, he walked to the center of the room and pressed something on his wrist. A blue light blinked to life in the air. A strange map appeared, stars, routes, codes in a language no one in the room could read, except maybe one. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. She had seen this language once, in forbidden scrolls from the old empire. This was not alien, it was human. The empress stepped forward. "What is this?" she asked. He looked at her. "A message," he said. "From who?" She asked. "From Earth," he replied. There was silence again. That name Earth was known only through old warnings. A world far away, wild, full of violent stories and strange heroes. Lyra finally spoke. "What do you want from us?" she asked. He turned to her. "I don't want anything," he said, "but Earth does." She felt a chill run through her. He wasn't here by accident. He had come with a plan. Later that night, Lyra moved quietly through the halls. The empress was resting, the other maids meditating, but Lyra couldn't sleep. Her mind was spinning with questions. She slipped into the chamber where the human slept. He was awake, sitting on the floor, eyes closed, breathing slow. He didn't move when she entered. "You knew I would come," she said. "Yes," he replied. She stepped closer. "Why did you really come here?" He opened his eyes. "They think I came to fight," he said. "They're wrong." She looked around the room. There were no weapons, no armor, just one small device glowing softly in the dark. She walked to it, pressed a button. A new image appeared, a red circle with flashing lines around it. At the top it read, "Earthstrike Plan, Phase 2. She turned sharply. "You're planning an attack?" She whispered. "No," he said. "I'm preparing for one." The door opened suddenly. The empress entered. Eyes sharp, voice calm. "You tricked us," she said. "You wanted us to surrender, not through war, but through fear." The human stood. "I wanted you to understand," he said. "What?" the empress asked. He looked at them both. "That Earth is not your enemy," he said, "unless you make it one." The empress stared at him for a long time. She could feel her heart beating faster. This human, this man, was not just a warrior. He was something else, a mirror, a question, a choice. As the stars moved slowly outside the palace windows, one thing became clear. The empire would never be the same. Not because of war, but because of him. The night sky above the palace was quiet, but something heavy was in the air, not wind, not storm, something unspoken, something powerful and watching. The human didn't sleep. He sat alone in the old war chamber, surrounded by alien symbols, blue lights, and maps from another world. His eyes were open, but he was somewhere else, far away, across the galaxy, across time, back to when he was a child, a cold training ground, buried in snow, children lined up in silence, faces blank, fists bleeding, one boy smaller than the others refused to fall. Each time he was knocked down, he stood again. A tall woman watched him through glass. Her voice echoed in his memory. "Emotion is a tool, not a weakness," she had said. "Pain is your teacher." The human blinked. Returning to the present, the palace walls were warm, but he still felt that cold inside him. Behind him, the door opened. Lyra stepped in slowly, her hands behind her back. She had removed her armor, wearing only a simple white robe now. No weapons. No tricks, just eyes full of questions. "I saw your memories," she said softly. He turned, surprised. "How?" he asked. She lifted a small glowing crystal. "Your device was still active," she replied. "It showed flashes like dreams." He didn't speak. She came closer. "You were trained like a machine," she said. "Since birth?" He nodded. "Since before that," he said. "We were designed, not born." Lyra sat across from him. For the first time, she didn't see him as a soldier or a threat. She saw something else, broken pieces hidden behind steel. "Why do you smile so?" "Little?" she asked. "I wasn't trained to enjoy things," he said. "I was trained to complete missions." She looked at his hands, strong and still. "Is that why you spared the Empress?" she asked. "Was it part of the mission?" He looked into her eyes. "No," he said. "That part was mine." Silence fell between them, but it wasn't empty. It was full of weight, like 1,000 thoughts trying to push through the cracks. Elsewhere, the Empress stood on her balcony. She had heard the whispering from the maids. She knew. Lyra had gone to the human again. She felt something rising inside her: jealousy, confusion, maybe even fear. Not fear of death, no, but fear of losing control. This human had not touched her kingdom with war, yet everything was changing. Her council had grown quiet. The people stared differently, and she herself. She had started asking questions she was never supposed to ask. What if power was not strength, but choice? What if rule came from trust, not fear? What if humans, small, soft-looking humans, knew something the empresses before her had forgotten? She closed her eyes and remembered the fight, the moment her champion had fallen. Not just killed, but outsmarted. A perfect strike. A clean kill. A warrior's death delivered by a human who moved like silence. She opened her eyes again and whispered, "To the stars, what are you?" Meanwhile, in the lower palace, 2 alien priests argued in secret. "He must be removed," said one. "He is unclean, unnatural. He twists the sacred law." "But he followed the law," the other replied. "He beat the champion fairly. He poisoned the future," the first spat. "We must erase him before Earth sends more." They planned quietly, thinking no one could hear, but the walls of the palace were old, and they remembered everything. Back in the chamber, Lyra stood up to leave, but before she could reach the door, the human spoke again. "Do you want to know why I spared her?" he asked. Lyra turned. "Yes," she said. "Tell me." He stood too, slowly, like a shadow rising. "She was brave enough to fight me with words," he said. "She didn't cry, or beg, or command." He looked toward the hall, where the Empress now walked alone. "She stood like a leader," he said. "And maybe that's what Earth needs." Lyra tilted her head. "Earth needs her?" "No," he said. "Earth needs allies, not slaves." Then he stepped forward slowly, until he stood in front of her. He placed his hand over his heart. "This mission was never about taking," he said. "It was about choosing." "Choosing what?" she asked. "To find those who still believe in change," he said, "and to see if they're worth saving." At that moment, the Empress entered. Her eyes met his, not with hate, not with fear, but with curiosity. She had heard enough. "I want to learn," she said. "Teach me what Earth teaches its leaders." The human nodded once. "But first," he said, "let me show you what we teach our soldiers." He turned and opened a wall panel, revealing a map of star systems. Blinking lights showed threats not from Earth, but from beyond, unknown. Species, rogue AI, broken empires rising again. "The galaxy is changing," he said, "and Earth cannot face it alone." The Empress stepped forward. "And you think we can help you?" He looked at her, serious and calm. "I think you can help yourselves," he said, "but only if you choose to." Outside the palace, thunder rolled across the sky. Not from weather, but from engines. A ship was approaching, its signal silent, its purpose unknown, and deep in the human's device, a message blinked. Observer activated. Phase 3 unlocked. The game was no longer about the champion or the throne, it was about survival. And who would stand at the end? Asterisk. The palace had never been this quiet before. No music, no laughter, no footsteps echoing in the golden halls. It was as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. The Empress stood alone in her private garden. Moonlight fell across her silver-blue skin. She reached down and touched a white flower growing from the soil. Its petals were soft, delicate, but deadly poison hidden behind beauty. She whispered to herself, "I was raised to rule with strength." Not softness, yet in her heart something had begun to shift. It started when the human spared her life. Then it grew when he trained her maids, not as servants, but as soldiers. Now it burned in her chest, a question she could no longer ignore. Was he the enemy or a mirror, showing her a better version of what leadership could be? Far away, the royal court gathered in secret. The high priest stood with 2 advisors and an old general. Their faces were cold, eyes narrow. "This human weakens her," the general said. "She listens to him, follows him. He makes her question the law," whispered the priest. "He must die, but not with swords," said the advisor. "No, swords make martyrs. Poison makes silence." They nodded. Tomorrow, a royal feast would be held, in honor of peace and truth. It would be the human's funeral. The next evening, the feast began. The great hall was filled with alien nobles, light crystals, and sweet-smelling dishes. The Empress wore a black robe, a color of royalty and mystery. The human sat beside her, his eyes sharp, but calm as always. Lyra stood nearby, watching every movement, every glance she didn't trust. The court, and tonight, her instincts screamed danger. A golden goblet was placed before the human. The wine shimmered, too red, too perfect. He lifted the cup slowly and drank. The room waited. 1 second, 2, 3. Suddenly, the human gripped the table. His eyes widened, his breath caught. He stumbled to his feet, knocking over his chair. Gasps echoed through the hall. The Empress stood up in shock. Lyra rushed to him, but the human raised his hand. "No," he said. "I'm not done." His body trembled, sweat on his forehead, but his eyes, they burned like fire. The priest stepped back, pretending to be shocked, but the human turned toward him and said, "Do you know what this poison does to humans?" The priest stayed silent. The human took a deep breath and straightened his back. "It sharpens us," he said. "It reminds us that comfort is the real danger." He turned to the court. "You think pain can stop me?" He said, "I was raised by it." Then in one swift motion, he threw the goblet across the hall. It shattered at the feet of the general who had planned the betrayal. "You poisoned the wrong man," he growled. Guards moved forward, but the Empress raised her hand. "No one touches him," she said. Her voice shook the walls. "He is under my protection." She walked to the human, placing her hand on his shoulder. "I will find who did this," she said, but the human looked at her with a strange calm. "I already know," he said. "They are afraid, because change is coming." He looked around the hall. "All of you fear me," he said, "because you don't understand me. But you will." He turned and left the hall. The Empress followed, not as a ruler, but as someone seeking answers. Lyra followed too, her heart pounding. They entered the old training room again. The Empress looked at him, her eyes softer now. "Why didn't you kill them?" she asked. He sat down on the cold floor. "Because if I use fear," he said, "then I know better than what I came to change." She knelt beside him. "Change is dangerous," she whispered. "So is staying the same," he replied. She looked into his face, searching for weakness, but found only focus. "Then teach me," she said. "Teach me the way Earth trains its leaders." The human turned to Lyra. "And you?" he asked. Lyra nodded. "If I'm going to serve the future," she said, "I want to understand it." The human looked at both of them. "This is not about Earth," he said. "This is about survival." He pressed a button on his wrist. A hologram appeared, a fleet of ships, unknown, monstrous, moving across the stars. "They are coming," he said. "Not from Earth, but from the dark beyond." The Empress felt her chest tighten. "What are they?" she asked. He looked her in the eyes. "Everything you fear," he said. "And everything you are not ready to face alone." Outside, thunder rolled again, not from weather, but from engines awakening. The sky above the palace shimmered as something massive entered orbit. The human stood up. "You tried to poison me," he said, "but instead you gave me a reason to fight harder." He looked toward the stars. "I made a promise," he said. "Not to Earth, but to the future." The Empress and Lyra stood beside him. They were no longer conqueror and conquered. They were something new, something dangerous, something united. The stars above the Empire began to blink, one by one, distant. Lights appeared on the outer edge of the system. They were not stars, they were ships. The control tower sent a signal to the palace. "Unknown fleet entering orbit," the message said. "No weapons raised, no communication yet." The Empress stood in her war chamber, surrounded by guards and advisors. She looked up at the sky through a crystal dome. She already knew who it was. Earth had arrived far below. The human stood alone on a stone balcony. He watched the sky quietly as the black silhouettes of Earth warships moved like shadows in water. Their shape was different from alien crafts, sharper, stronger, colder, and each one carried more firepower than her entire royal fleet. The Empress stepped beside him, her voice calm but sharp. "You called them," she said. "I didn't," he replied. "But they were always watching." She stared at the ships above. "And what do they want now?" she asked. The human tapped his wrist. A small message blinked onto the screen. It read, "Observer Unit 9, status request. Target world secure, allies or hostile?" He didn't reply, not yet. Behind them, Lyra entered. She looked from the human to the Empress. "I've seen that signal before," she said. "If you mark us as hostile." "They won't negotiate," the human nodded. "They will not ask questions twice," he said. "They don't believe in second chances." The Empress's eyes narrowed. "You hold more power than you admit," she said. "You could end us with one word." The human looked at her. "I didn't come to end you," he said. "I came to see if you were worth warning." Down in the Grand City, panic spread like fire. People ran through the streets, pointing at the sky. Religious leaders called it judgment. Generals called for defense. Children looked up in silence. Sensing something no words could explain, in the palace hall, the council gathered. They demanded answers, demanded war, demanded the human be taken prisoner. But the Empress raised her hand and silenced them. "Earth is not here to fight," she said. "They are here to test our future." The general slammed his fist on the table. "Then let us show them our strength," he growled. The Empress turned her gaze toward him. "No," she said. "We show them our mind." Later that night, the human stood in a high chamber, staring at a large screen. The signal from the Earthship blinked again. "More urgent now," he typed in a response. "Not hostile. Observation ongoing. Integration possible. Await phase 3. Then he shut off the screen and turned around. Lyra stood at the doorway, watching him with cautious eyes. "You could have destroyed us already," she said. "Why didn't you?" He walked toward her slowly. "Because destruction is easy," he said. "Understanding takes strength." She stepped closer. "And if we choose not to change?" He looked at her for a long moment. "Then Earth won't need to come back," he said. "Because others will come, and they won't give you a choice." Suddenly, a soft chime rang across the palace. A new signal, but not from Earth. It was alien, different, dark, cold. The Empress ran to the chamber, followed by her guards. "What is it?" she asked. The human checked the screen. His eyes narrowed. "It's not from Earth," he said. "It's from the outside." A red hologram filled the room, showing dozens of unknown ships approaching from the opposite side of the galaxy. They were not Earth's enemies. They were everyone's enemies. The Empress stared in horror. "This is a double-front war," she whispered. "We are trapped between two storms." The human stepped forward. "No," he said. "You are standing at a crossroad." He pointed to the Earth fleet on one side of the screen, then to the unknown threat approaching from the other. "Choose wisely," he said, "because one side asks, the other takes." She looked at him. "Will Earth fight beside us?" She asked. "If I choose you." The human's voice became quiet. "Earth does not fight for weakness," he said. "It fights for potential." She nodded slowly, then turned to her council. "We prepare," she said, "not to beg, not to run, but to prove we can be more than what we were." The human stepped beside her. "And if you fall?" he asked. She looked at him with steady eyes. "Then let it be known," she said, "that we fell reaching for something higher." A message blinked once more from the Earth ship. The human finally replied, "Potential confirmed. Phase 3 begins. Await integration protocols." Above the planet, Earth's ships did not fire. They held position, waiting, watching, and beyond them, in the black cold of deep space, the real storm moved closer. The red moon rose over the Empire. It was round, full, and burning with a strange light. The priests called it sacred. The generals called it a symbol of power. But tonight, it would mean betrayal. Inside the royal palace, celebrations began. Alien banners waved. Music filled the halls. A feast was prepared in the name of unity, but it was a mask, a lie dressed in gold and smiles. The Empress wore a long black gown, her crown resting lightly on her head. She looked calm, proud, but her thoughts were spinning. The Earth fleet still waited in the sky, and a darker threat from beyond was moving closer. She knew her empire was standing between two fires, and she knew her people were afraid of change, afraid of weakness, afraid of the human. The human entered the grand hall without guards. He wore no armor, no weapons, only dark clothing and silence. The crowd parted as he walked, not because he demanded it, but because they feared what he might do. He stepped beside the Empress and nodded. "No one smiles at this party," he said quietly. She gave a soft smile. "They smile with their knives hidden." At that moment, across the room, Lyra stood near the pillars. She felt something wrong in the air, not noise, too much silence. Not tension, too much stillness. Her eyes scanned the crowd, and then she saw two maids from the inner court who were never trusted with weapons. Today, both wore blades beneath their robes. Something was wrong, very wrong. Suddenly, the high priest raised his cup. "To unity," he said, "to our Empress, and to our new guest." The crowd raised their cups, but the human did not drink. He was watching too. Not the priest. The ceiling, his eyes moved fast, following the small red light above. A sniper unit, placed in the shadows, armed and aimed. Lyra acted. First, she threw a knife across the room, striking the maid nearest the Empress. The woman collapsed, a hidden blade falling from her hand. Screams echoed. Guards drew weapons, but they were too slow. A loud crack exploded from above. The sniper fired, but the human moved. He jumped forward, pushing the Empress down. The shot missed her neck by inches, slicing her crown in two. More blades appeared in the crowd. Traitors from within. Royal cousins, exiled commanders, and masked assassins. They had waited for this night, the blood moon, to take back the Empire by force, but they had not counted on him. The human moved like lightning, no weapons, just fists and motion. One attacker came close. He broke her arm in a single move. Another jumped. He flipped him mid-air, slammed him to the ground. Lyra fought beside him, fast and fierce. She was no longer a servant. She was something else now. A protector, a believer. The Empress stood again, her breath sharp, her heart pounding. She had been betrayed by her own blood, but it was the human, a stranger from another world, who had saved her. In the chaos, the priest tried to escape. He reached the back hall, pulling a small device from his robe. A signal beacon, one designed to call the darker fleet from beyond. Not Earth's, but the ancient enemy. He activated it. But before the signal could finish, a hand grabbed his wrist and crushed it. The human stood there, eyes glowing with rage. "You were ready to burn your world, just to stop change," he said. The priest hissed, "You are the infection." "No," the human replied. "I'm the cure." He turned to the Empress who had followed. "You should deliver the punishment," he said. Her voice was cold. "Let him live." She said, "But mark him. Let his face show the world what betrayal looks like." Later, the fires were put out. The dead were counted. The traitors were locked away. And the Empress stood before her people. "No more shadows," she said. "No more masks." She looked at the human. "He is not our conqueror," she said. "He is our mirror." The people listened. For the first time, not with fear, but with curiosity. That night, on the highest tower, the human stood with Lyra. They looked out at the dark side of space, where the unknown fleet still moved closer. "You think they'll stop now?" she asked. "No," he replied. "They were always coming." She looked at him. "And us?" He looked at the stars. "If you stand together, you'll survive," he said. "If you break again, you'll vanish." Behind them, the Empress arrived. Her hair was loose, her crown gone, not as a ruler, but as someone. Rebuilding, she stepped beside the human. "I'm not the same woman I was before you came," she said. He nodded. "And I'm not the same human I was before I met you." They stood side by side. The warrior, the Empress, the former maid. Not as enemies, not as rulers, but as the beginning of something new. The blood moon had come, and it had revealed the truth. Not everyone wanted peace, but those who did would now fight for it. The skies were no longer still. Above the Empire's capital, two fleets floated in silence. On one side, Earth's warships, sharp as blades, holding their fire, waiting. On the other, the Shadow Fleet, ancient, silent, moving like a slow storm. They did not send messages, they did not ask questions, they were coming. The Empress stood at the edge of the palace tower, her cloak dancing in the wind. Below her, the city burned and healed at the same time. Banners torn, walls cracked, but hearts opening. She looked across the stars and whispered, "They are testing us." Behind her, the human approached. He wore simple clothing, no armor, no crown. Yet every soldier moved aside when he passed. Every noble lowered their eyes. She turned to face him. "You said Earth wouldn't fight for weakness," she said. "Then why are they still here?" He stepped forward, calm. "Because they saw something worth staying for," he said. Lyra appeared beside them, bruises on her arms, pride in her eyes. "We've trained the palace guards," she said. "We've restructured the council, replaced the traitors." Then her voice softened. "We're ready." But the Empress shook her head. "No," she said. "We're not ready for war." The human looked at her closely. "Then what are you ready for?" he asked. She stepped toward him slowly. "For something harder than war," she said. "For peace." He was quiet for a moment, then tapped his wrist device. The hologram returned, showing Earth's fleet still waiting for orders. His finger hovered above the final command. A single choice. Mark the Empire as integrated or terminated. The Empress saw the two options glowing. "Is it truly up to you?" she asked. He looked at her. "I was given power," he said, "but I chose not to use it like a hammer." He pointed to the people rebuilding below. "You gave them hope without command," he said. "You changed more with this speech than a sword." She stepped beside him. "And if I fail?" she asked. He turned to her. "Then Earth will remember you as someone who tried," he said. "And that is already more than most do." Suddenly, a loud alarm echoed through the palace. The dark fleet had broken into visual range, massive ships with no symbols, no words, only hunger. The city below panicked. But the Empress raised her hand and spoke through the palace voice line. "We will not run," she said. "We will not beg. Stand with me. Not as subjects, but as a people. The human looked at Lyra. Activate the signal beacon, he said. Full power. Let Earth know we've made our choice. She ran, fast as lightning, within minutes. A deep blue pulse shot into the sky. Earth's ships received it instantly. The code was clear, Alliance AC seat. And Earth responded. The skies above the capital lit up as Earth's warships shifted position. They formed a defensive ring around the Empire's world, preparing to fight. But they didn't fight alone. Alien ships, rebuilt, repaired, and rearmed by humans, joined them. Empire guards, now trained in human tactics, stood ready. It was not a war of two sides. It was a war between hope and hunger. The battle began with fire. The Dark Fleet launched its first strike, but Earth answered with silence and precision. Lasers, drones, kinetic missiles. Every shot meant to protect, not destroy. On the ground, soldiers ran through the city, guiding civilians, helping the weak. Lyra led one of the squads, moving with purpose. She was no longer a maid, she was a leader, and above them, in the command tower, the Empress and the human watched the battle unfold. Neither wore a crown. Both wore resolve. She turned to him. What happens after this? She asked. He looked at her. That's your choice now, he said. The fighting lasted through the night. But when the red sun rose, the Dark Fleet was gone. Defeated not by power alone, but by unity. The city did not cheer, not right away. But it stood tall, and sometimes survival itself is a kind of victory. Later that day, a final message came from Earth's command. It was simple. Observer Unit 9, integration complete. Return optional. The human stared at the message for a long time. Then he looked at the Empress. I can leave, he said. She nodded. But you haven't, she said. He smiled, a rare, honest smile. Because I see something here, he said. Something I want to build, not break. She stepped forward. Then stay, she said. Not as my owner, not as my conqueror, but as something else. He raised a brow. As what? She held out her hand. As my equal. He took her hand, gently. And for the first time since he had stepped onto this world, he wasn't a weapon. He was a choice above them. The Earth fleet turned slowly and began to fade into the stars. Their job was done, but something greater had just begun. Not an empire, not a colony, but a new path, where fear did not lead, where strength was shared, and where one human's choice lit the way for many.